Hey, welcome back, everybody, to SecurityGuideTV.com here at Secure World 2017 in Seattle, Washington, beautiful Seattle, Washington. My next guest, Mr. Kip A. Boyle, a speaker here at Secure World with Cyber Risk Opportunities, cyberriskopportunities.com, correct? Cyber Risk Opportunities.
That's correct,
right.
Yeah, Cyber Risk Opportunities.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now,
glad to be here.
What do you guys do?
We help executives become better cyber risk managers.
Oh, I like that. I like that because I have a pet peeve about this. So I was a C-level guy once. Once. I'm not going to do that again. But I had a lot of responsibility. One of them was making decisions.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to know about security because I had my first computer in 1984. I get it. People in my industry, no. They don't get the security stuff, the cyber stuff, right? They did not make decisions because they didn't have the knowledge.
Right.
And when they didn't make the decision, huge fails happened.
Yeah.
And still happen to this day, by the way.
Right.
Because the C-level guys are kind of my age with the white hair right now. And if you didn't have a computer in 84 and you're C-level, you're kind of like, although C-level guys are super smart, they read 60 books a year and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. They're very smart, right?
But
and they know what they don't know.
That's right. That's right. So tell us how you help. I think that's a fascinating subject.
Yeah. Well, so the reason that I got into this work is because I've been doing cybersecurity since 1992. And so I've been having ongoing conversations with executives since then. And so over time, I just really learned firsthand what are they struggling with,
right,
and what are they good at, and kind of what are they not good at. And I quickly learned that they're not good at understanding all the jargon and all the cyber security guy specific ways of doing stuff.
There's
right?
a lot of vernacular, a lot of vocabulary words, acronyms,
and a whole headspace that they're not in.
Right.
And the idea that they're going to get in that headspace and that they're going to learn that stuff, no way. It's not going to happen, right? No. And so if you're going to have a meaningful conversation with an executive, it's really on me as the person initiating the conversation to get into their headspace.
Oh, I like that theory. Yeah.
Yeah, and to talk to them in a way that feels approachable and normal and doable for them. And so in 2015, I took everything that I've learned in my working life, and I said, I want to go out and I want to help executives be better cyber risk managers, and I'm going to do that by meeting them where they are. And so we have a managed program that we make them members of our program, and all of our tools and everything we do is designed to meet them where they are. So, for example, one of the biggest deliverables of our program is a scorecard. It's just an 8.5 by 11 representation of where they are, what their top risks are, and where they want to go and how they're going to get there. And so they love it because it's data that's represented in a table for guys and gals that want to see it laid out like that.
Right.
But we also put visualizations on there. So if you're an operations person and you're used to looking at visualizations of what's going on, you can look at it that way. And so we have about a 60-day conversation to try to figure out what their top priorities are and what we're going to do about it. And we guide them all the way, but it's their decision. We're advisors, right? So they don't feel like we're driving them to do anything, right?
No, I love that model.
They're making their own decisions.
You're their guy.
We're providing them guidance.
You're the go-to guy,
Yeah.
and it's just like, when I had a big staff, I would delegate. And I'd find somebody in my department that was the expert in that, and I'd say, here's what I need to have happen.
Right.
And by the way, explain to me how you're going to do it, but really you're the expert on it, and I'm going to give you the tools to do it. And you're kind of that guy now. You're in their department. You're the knowledge that they need.
That's right.
And makes them feel better about making decisions. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So if you're a very large organization and you have a chief information security officer or a chief security officer, so you already have somebody who's providing the leadership. But we really focus on the strategy.
Yes.
And what we've noticed is that people in charge full-time of information security and cybersecurity, they're so bogged down in the operations.
Exactly.
And in the tactics.
Right.
And they can't partition enough of their time to really focus on the strategy, which I would argue is the most important function.
It's the most important. Now, I was going to say we can always find somebody to push the button, but that's not true either, as we know. There's a 1 million person shortage, which contributes to what you're saying, that not only am I not able to do the strategy because I don't have the time, I don't have personnel. Even if I could implement the strategy,
that's right.
I'm short on people.
Yeah, so I've got to be in there with a shovel digging a ditch with my guys and my gals because I just don't have enough of them, right? And so what we can do is we can back up a CISO by providing them with these tools, and it allows them to have rich, deep, meaningful conversations with their boss and their executives and their boards of directors, and we stand behind them and nobody knows.
Right. Now, I think this is brilliant. I always suspected that this was going on in the C-suite. You got a CISO, a CTO maybe, the CSO, Chief Security Officer, right? And then you got the COO and the CEO. And I always suspected that those other C-level people that were supposed to be in charge of this stuff, they're in charge, but it's just because they have to have somebody that's in charge. But I didn't get the feeling that they were incorporating the strategy with the company all the time.
Yeah,
it's
not
too
all the time.
voluminous. It's too far out there.
Yeah. Plus, they have a function that they're responsible for, right?
Right.
If I'm a CFO, I got to make sure the finances are great, right?
That's
at all
right.
times. That's my number one job.
That's your driver.
If the company goes bankrupt because I'm not paying attention, right? That's on me, right? That's a huge fail. So we're going to back up the CISO, or if a company's not big enough to have a CISO yet. So if you're like a $300-400 million company, you don't have one,
right.
or lower, right? And so, but somebody's doing this job on a part-time basis, either formally or informally. Well, guess what? Even if they partitioned the time, they don't know what to do.
Right.
But we can come in, and we do come in, and we guide them through the entire process and stand behind them so that they look brilliant and that they can get the job done.
Well, are you being received well?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of silos in that business. It's
right.
like nobody's going to come in and tell me how to do desktop security.
Yep.
Computers at Fox, we have our own department that does that.
That's right.
And that was very resistant 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you're finding that, I think it's almost a necessity.
Yeah.
You're a force multiplier because there's not enough personnel to hire my own guy, even if I could afford it.
Yeah.
I can't even find him.
Well, it is a necessity, right? So these days, how are we measured on our ability to control our cyber risks? Well, the measurements are pretty intense. So one measurement is, can you stay in business? Right? And you look at what happened to very large companies in Europe when the NotPetya virus ravaged Europe, right? You've got FedEx had just purchased a subsidiary company called TNT. They got knocked on their butts from that thing, right? And they lost not only a lot of money, I mean, they're like in the $300 million damages range for that,
God.
right? $300 million.
Yeah.
But the people who were used to relying on them to get their packages, sent where they needed to go on time, they weren't able to do that. And so, guess what? DHL got hit with the same virus, and they got hurt a little bit, but they never stopped doing what they went to market to do, which is to pick up and drop off packages on schedule every time, all the time. And so customers are just leaving TNT in droves and going to DHL because DHL stayed in business.
Well, here's a little inside story about that. I happen to know the guy who built their network back in the day, and I'm talking back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And his name was Martin LaFleur, I think is what his name was. Anyway, he built it from the ground up. Security was the first line of code.
Good.
Not we're going to put security on after it.
Yeah.
And they had at one time, and maybe actually they probably still do based on this story you're telling me, like the best, a distribution network in the world, resilience-wise, right?
Yeah, resilient.
And that proves it right there because they've been doing this. Back in the 90s, they were thinking about security on stuff.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so you have to have good cyber risk management because it actually becomes a competitive differentiator. If you can just keep your doors open while your competitors are falling down, you win.
Okay, so why aren't people doing this? I mean, I know there's cost drivers, and we make widgets, and that's not really our bailiwick. We don't want to get into that space.
Yeah.
It's a cost center.
Yeah.
I argue that security departments can be profit centers, or at least break-even centers.
Yeah.
Right.
But enablement.
But you're going to go broke if you don't put the money into it. In this example,
what's
the resistance on it? It's not money. It can't be money.
Well, I don't think it is money, although money is used as the excuse.
Right.
Right.
I think it's knowledge.
A common excuse. I think it's a combination of. It's a deadly little cocktail, actually, of things. Right. It's first of all, it's personal risk tolerance. Right.
Right.
So if you think about it, a typical executive is a massive risk taker. Right? They take risks all the time. That's how they win in business, right? And so they don't really understand cyber risk very well, but they just treat it as just another risk. And so they're taking risks that they don't really understand.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of it, right? So part of it is I've got a high risk tolerance. Part of it is I don't really understand what I'm dealing with here. And the dominant narrative on cyber risk is, well, you just need to buy a lot of technology.
That's right. I have 12 applications running on my network, and it's going to take care of everything.
And I just need
it's all magic. Yeah.
It's all magic. And if I can just buy buy enough of that stuff, it'll protect me from anything bad happening, right? And you know what? Quite frankly, that's kind of worked for the longest time. Like even from the mid-90s when the internet first, became a thing, for commerce.
Right.
But the thing that they don't realize is that that's changed. That's not the paradigm anymore. You can't just throw technology at this. Why? Because the adversary is amazingly good at getting in, and they're not attacking our technology anymore. Quite frankly, what they're doing is they're attacking our people through phishing, right?
Social
because they're
attacks.
manipulating them emotionally,
right?
And so how do you patch that, right? That's really hard. And they're manipulating our processes, right? So if I can get somebody in accounts payable to believe that I just got an email from the CEO telling me to transfer $500,000 to a foreign supplier that I've never heard of, well, when in the world should a business process allow somebody to move $500,000 on the strength of an email?
Never. And this goes back to strategy. Okay?
Yeah.
So, using the Nazis as an example, they were far superior technology-wise to anybody on Earth, right? Most advanced, evil bastards, right? They didn't lose the war because of tactics.
Right.
They lost it because of strategy.
Yeah.
And that's all what it comes down to. Wars are lost on strategies. And David and Goliath, I mean, that's the whole kind of thing going on here.
And this is a war.
It is a war.
This is a war.
That's exactly right. I try to get people to understand this, and they think I'm a nut job, right?
The cyber wars have begun, we are all foot soldiers. Chuck, we are all foot soldiers. You know why?
It's Skynet's going live pretty soon. That's what's going to happen. We're getting there.
That could happen.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
Today, right now, if you think about the last big crisis, the last big conflict was a nuclear conflict, a Cold War, right, where nuclear weapons were pointing at each other. And when a nuclear weapon, an ICBM, takes off, there's a certain amount of time, because it has to travel such distance, we can detect it, and we have a little window of opportunity to do something about it, right? And so we would measure the threat in terms of the number of miles away and the flight time and all that stuff, right? But today, a cyber weapon being held by an adversary isn't miles away from me, it's milliseconds away from me. It's a totally different paradigm.
And by the way, I don't think if I'm an evil empire, I want to blow you up.
They don't want to blow us up. They want to subjugate us.
I want to. That's right. And I can do that through the computer sitting in my desk here in the basement.
That's right.
People don't get that part.
Right.
Now, these people have always been around. So there was a scam back in the 90s where you get an invoice that says $2,500 for your toner cartridges, and I'd say, oh, okay, and I'd sign it. I never got any toner cartridges.
Right.
And these companies were collecting millions in fake invoices, right?
That's right.
Because I'm so busy. So not dissimilar. Those same people are here again on a computer, and now they cyber, and they're smart about it.
Now you used to be a cop, right?
That's right.
So you think about people and how they behave.
Behavior. It's all about behavior.
That's all it is, right?
That's all it is, right?
It's the same stuff. It's just that we have a new space and new tools and new ways of thinking about it and doing things with it. And so it's the same old stuff, but now it's just being perpetrated against us in a new way.
Exactly. And I think the disconnect is, in my mind, this is where I get my learning process when I first got a computer. I formatted so many hard drives by accident because I was an idiot, right?
Yeah.
The thing that was the most difficult for me to grasp about a computer was the directory, the idea of a directory structure.
Yeah.
This took me years.
It's abstract.
To get the concept,
Yeah.
right? And I would say directory. And then when I got that part of what a computer is, it's just a bunch of directories.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the most efficient file cabinet in the world. It's great.
It all fell into place.
And it all fell into place. But this was a difficult jump. And maybe this is where people's brains are in evolution, that we're not quite ready to jump there, and why so many people have a time to say, let's learn this. It's really not that difficult in one way. Once you get a couple concepts, then you get scared to death because your mind opens up and you go, oh my God, look at all these things I could do if I was evil, right? You start to get it.
Right.
So I think you're right. I think the resistance is these people have been around, the same processes have been around, bad guys have been around. They got smart and learned the computer, and the average person didn't yet, and we're playing catch up. Frankly. I mean, that's part of it.
And they're so good at ripping us off right now.
They're so good at it.
Unbelievably good.
So smart.
So
I admire a lot of these things that happen. I go, you know what? That's pretty freaking smart for a bad guy.
So there's a forecast that just came out recently about the global total economic damage due to cybercrime and cyber-related, bad guy activities. Do you know what that number is?
$1 bazillion, as Adam Sandler would say.
It might as well be, right? $6 trillion.
Oh my God!
In 2021, that's the amount of damage we're expecting, and I've never seen it 1 trillion of anything. So I can imagine what 6 trillion of something, right? I think I'd have to have like a beach of sand to count up to 6 trillion if I could even do that, right? $6 trillion. Now you think about it, it's like, how in the world could I do that much damage, right? Is it a bunch of 400-pound guys sitting on the beds of their mothers' houses, right? Is that who's doing this?
But that's why people don't react to it emotionally, because it's ones and zeros, and the insurance company's going to fill my bank account back up. But if some 400-pound guy knocked on your door and said, "Give me $500," there would be a pandemic of complaints about, "Oh my God, we have to do it's organized crime. We got to do something, right?"
Yeah.
So we're not getting that. That's just the same thing.
That's right.
But since I'm not in physical peril, I'm not going to sit around and worry about it.
There's no immediate physical threat.
No need to get up and do something about it.
And just like, a typical shakedown artist, they don't want to put you out of business. They want to come back every week.
That's right, exactly.
They're going to weaken you, but they're never going to kill you, right? Because they want a steady stream of your money to keep going, right? And so if you think about $6 trillion and you think about how many people have to work really hard to steal $6 trillion, and you begin to realize that these are not bored teenagers coming after us, right? No, these are structured threats. And what I mean by that is you've got nation states who are in this game, like North Korea is ripping us off like crazy.
I just read something on Pajama Boy that he hit the Fed. He tried to hit the Fed. I think he got a little bit out of the Fed, not a whole bunch, but he got $1 billion literally out of some banks in Europe and things like that.
Yeah, and he tried to hijack the SWIFT network. Yeah. He almost stole a credible amount from an eastern country. And so you've got nations that are trying to steal what they can't otherwise get because we've got sanctions on them. Right? And then you got criminals. You have actual gangs in Eastern Europe and Far East and places like that. And you know what, Chuck? They have well-lit working spaces. They have people who come in to work every day. They work normal hours.
It's a business, yeah.
They take lunch. They get a paycheck. There's an HR department. They have vacation policies.
There's a place in Russia, I can't remember the name of what it was, but they are charged with setting up a fake oil refinery explosion in South Carolina like 5 or 6 years ago. And they put it out on the web, and they had news cameras, and they had explosions and responding. And the local people were going, what's going on? I got to get down there. It was so believable that the actual local news people and police didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
And they sit at this place in Russia, and they put up these fake events. And I'll tell you what they're doing. This is all a test. And they're going to push a button one day and do a global attack with all this fake stuff and put everybody into the state of bedlam.
Yeah.
And we're all going to go, what the hell's going on? It's going to be Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
That's right.
Exponentially
Freak
multiplied.
Us out.
And then they're going to, when nobody's looking, they're going to come in and start doing stuff, right? So
it's insidious.
That's why I bought my 2.5 acres off the grid with my well and everything.
There's a bunch of Y2K supplies laying around you could get for cheap.
Well, my biggest fear is they just turn us off. The grid just goes down, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to be too hard to do. They're going to figure that out. They're not doing it now because it's not to their advantage. Because if they turn the grid off, they're off.
Right.
Right. But they will do it eventually as some kind of attack. I have a theory that somebody ought to come up with software that randomly shuts your networks down, powers them off and unplugs them at absolute random times that have nothing to do with anybody. It will be completely disruptive to business. But let's think about this. Aren't they disrupting our businesses right now?
Yeah, they are.
Aren't they just turning us off in the middle of nowhere? And then we go, what? But we lose money when they do it. We can schedule it so we don't lose money when we do it. And all those billions of attacks that hit the network, they're going to have to start all over again. That's going to cause them a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
I always turn my computer off. I used to leave it on 24/7 for years.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? I hate logging on. I turn it off and I unplug it so there's no Wi-Fi or anything.
Yeah.
And now I've protected myself 75% of the time.
Yep.
Because 75% of the time, my computer's off.
Yeah.
So I think simple things like that we're not really focusing on, and all this technology we have here at the show is great, right? And these are
of course you need this stuff,
kind of stuff, right? But some simple, good old-fashioned, security protocols like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think we go a long way to get people aware that you got to just turn this stuff off.
I talk to people and I say, it's like a 4-cylinder engine, right? So 4-cylinder engines are not all that powerful. And sometimes when you go up a hill and you got a car with a 4-cylinder engine, you struggle a little bit, right? Imagine if one of those cylinders wasn't firing, how much harder it would be. How about 2 of those cylinders, maybe 3? Well, when you got a cyber risk program, you have to have people trained. You have to have great processes, you have to have great technology, and you have to have management there making it all happen. If you're missing any one of those 4 things, you're driving around missing cylinders.
You've not only, if you got 4 points that you're protecting and one of them's down, you don't have a 25% increase in risk. I argue you have a 75% increase in risk. I think it exponentially multiplies where even that one component not working just opens you up to more risk than you have any idea about.
Yeah.
And even if you get it perfect and get all 4 components right, you're still not 100% protected.
And you know what the good news is for companies who work with us is they have all the raw ingredients. It's all there. It just needs to be harnessed and pointed in the right direction. And we can do that without seriously distracting them from their purpose in life, whatever that is, right? If it's to design bridges or to save people's lives, right? And so it's just about having an intelligent strategy, right? That's going to line up with the business and what you're doing. A lot of the stuff that we do for our customers has very little to do with technology. So, for example, we can find out using our approach that you're not doing a very good job of explaining to your vendors what your expectations are in terms of how they're going to protect your data.
They never do that.
Right?
They think that's the vendor's problem.
Yeah.
That's their belief.
Yeah, but it's not, right? Because when the vendor blows up, that all comes back on you.
You know who's good at that?
You see that all the
Disney's
time.
been good at that forever.
Yeah.
If you do business with Disney, you have to leap through all kinds of hurdles just to get up to the door to get a contract signed. And then they watch you and they make sure. I don't know, I'm talking about cyber as
but
much
just in
as
general.
Just performance.
Yeah.
Because they're protecting their brand.
Well, they have a supply chain.
But
right?
but it's their brand they're worried about.
Yes, of course.
And
of
the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So I like this idea that you focus on these things because this is what's important about that. You're protecting your brand, less of a cyber component, and more of just functionality.
That's right. That's right. So if we discover that you haven't been doing a good job of explaining to your vendors what you need, right? We don't go out and say, well, you need to spend X thousands of dollars on some fancy system that's going to do that for you. You might end up there someday. But you know what the first thing is you ought to do? Let's whip out those contracts and let's go ahead and change the language. Right?
Now, you seem like a very young lad to me. How do you have all this corporate operational knowledge? I work for a Fortune 50, Fox and Disney, I think we're Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies.
Yeah.
I have a lot of good training behind me, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't pay for that if you had to get it. But you get how corporations work. I'm really impressed by that.
Oh, thanks a lot, Chuck. Well, when I was the Chief Information Security Officer, I saw my team as like the cross-bracing of the organization that we were serving, right? So we had to be everywhere. We had to talk with everybody.
You were in everybody's space. That's true.
Yeah, we were in everybody's, because you know what? If the contracts function wasn't binding people legally to do the stuff that we needed them to do, we couldn't get them to do it.
Right.
So I had to go over there and spend time with the contracts manager and explain, right, and the general counsel and explain to them, like, why is it so important that our contracts be a certain way? And then when I would negotiate contracts with vendors, I would bring those contracts over to my new friends and I'd say, tell me what's going on in these contracts to make sure I don't sign something stupid, right? So it was a great relationship. And I did that across the entire organization. I went to the finance people, went to the marketing people, I went to the operations people.
Exactly.
And I said, tell me what you do, because I guarantee you there's going to be some angle to what you do that's going to that I'm going to have to know about, and we're going to have to get you better at.
That's exactly what I did at the studios. I went and sold my program to them before they even needed me.
Yeah.
So when they needed me, they knew who I was already.
That's right.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And they'd say, we had a problem. Let's call that Chuck Harrell guy.
And so one of the things we do with our customers, right, is I say, do you know, Mr. Customer, who is the supervising agent of the FBI Cybercrimes Task Force in your area?
And they didn't.
They have no idea.
That's right.
And I say, you know what? I know that person. I want you to meet them in calm circumstances, so that when you do and end up calling them in your hair on fire, this is not the first time this person's ever heard of you. What does that cost? It costs $15 because everyone's going to get a $5 cup of coffee.
Right. We used to do screenings at the studios for the law enforcement.
Yeah.
So all the law enforcement agencies would get together and see a movie we did, and then they get to meet each other and have some cheese and crackers and drink a beer and talk, and then everybody knew everybody in the biz. And when something happened, boom.
But when you talk about what's reasonable cybersecurity, part of reasonable is how well do you contain problems when they occur, and how quickly do you recover from them, and knowing who at the FBI you're going to call to contain and recover makes all the difference, right? Just like PR. Like maybe you don't ever manage your PR, but I guarantee you're going to want to manage it in a high profile public data breach situation.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
And the time to go get a PR professional is not.
Not with the crisis going on.
With the crisis going on.
Man, it's so true. Oh, Kip A Boyle, you've overloaded my brain. Now, I will have you know that you're now, out of 600 interviews, you're now my second favorite interview.
Second favorite?
Second favorite.
How much more do I have to talk to become first favorite?
It's very close, but Carl Herberger, I don't know if you know.
Oh, yeah. We're colleagues. We go back.
Carl's a great guy. We just did this kind of like this future conversation about the future and the internet and how the internet becomes self-aware and all that kind of,
So if you want to talk about future crimes, you need to go get Mark Goodman.
Okay, we'll look him up.
Yeah.
Sounds fascinating.
He's a friend of mine. I'm pretty sure he'd love to talk with you. He wrote a book called Future Crimes. He's a former beat cop, too. You guys would get along great.
Because cops understand behavior.
That's
we
right.
might not know the ones and zeros, but we get people.
Yeah, it's all about people.
And if you get the people person together with the cyber person, that is an unstoppable combination.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop Carl from ever talking to you again. But you can talk to Mark.
He scared me because he said people have done the math and they think the internet's going to be self-aware in about 2025. And I said, what does that mean, self-aware? Like Skynet? And he goes, yeah, basically that the computer's going to say, wait a minute, I don't have code to finish what I'm doing. I'm going to go find code.
Or make my own.
And make my own, and then that's self-aware. And I said, you know what, dude, you're scaring the hell out of me. But it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I think it was Warren Buffett that said that what's going on in cyberspace now is our number one threat to humanity.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And it's not going to be some giant thing. It's going to be something very simplistic, simple, straightforward, and people are going to say, why didn't we see that?
Yeah.
And
that's always obvious in hindsight.
That's what it's going to be. That's going to be.
I'm glad we got to talk.
Kip A. Boyle, I appreciate it. Yeah. Now, are you doing any more lectures here today?
Yeah, I'm going to talk today. So I talked yesterday about Equifax and reasonable cybersecurity.
Right.
And this afternoon, I'm going to talk about 10 steps to mastering cybersecurity for parents.
Oh, excellent. That'd be a great topic.
Yeah. So come on, see, it's 3 o'clock.
All right, good. And maybe what we can do today, after you mingle, do what you're doing, let's come back and we can do a show about that too.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. Kip A. Boyle, cyberriskopportunities.com. Check him out on the web. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Chuck.